What? Well,
Pat.
Juan, we are live. Thanks, Liz. We had a little bit of a glitch, folks. So we had a little glitch there. All figured it out. Juan's a world traveler, so being resourceful and making things work is pretty much his thing. So first off, I want to thank you. I want to thank anybody that's watching this now. Anybody watches in the future. Thanks for taking the time to learn a little about Trinidad, Southern Colorado. I'm Pat Howlett with localstash.com. We're a database of about 700 of the coolest. Well, they're really cool too, because you'll find out when I talk to Juan, because he's in a lot of these places with the travel guide. But some of the coolest rural towns in America that have great local, vibrant local businesses and cool outdoor recreation opportunities. And you're going to see this if you're in Trinidad. You're going to see this hit the businesses, a map that Stephen, Juan's partner, put together. Quite frankly, I commissioned him a long time ago on that. And then events in an area. So you'll see that out there. This is something that we're going to be talking about right now. And this is one of several. So kind of with me today is Juan DelaRoca. And Juan, just the official stuff. Juan earned his bachelor's degree at Ohio University, adjunct instructor at our very own Trinidad State College, owns Backstop bicycles, and so does trips to Guatemala, South America, those kind of things. So if you're interested in that, this would be the guy to touch with. But he's also, and this is one of the things we're going to talk about, he's also the publisher and editor-in-chief of Gravel Adventure Guide. But mostly he's an advocate and a champion. And I'd like to just say that Juan is probably one of the most passionate champions for an activity that I've ever met. And it shows in the results. And I'm just happy he calls Trinidad home. Welcome, Juan. I'm glad you're taking the time. Thank you for doing it.
Good morning, Pat. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk.
Perfect. We're gonna kind of jump right in. Okay, so we'll talk about the. Let me show this to you again. So look at this. Maps of some of the coolest places in Southern Colorado with information, and you're going to be able to see the vistas, the buttes, the mountains, the plains. So much diversity here, and it's right in this guide. So let's jump. Tell me a little bit about gravel grinding, kind of the history of sport, where it is, who it's for, can anybody do it, that kind of thing.
So gravel cycling has been growing substantially. I would say, it's one of those genres of cycling where there'll probably be some debate as to where it started and how it started. But for the most part, it began in the early 2000s with one event in particular in Emporia, Kansas. And it grew from there to, where it is now, which is it's the hottest thing in cycling. Like, there are a lot of people who are seeking out less trafficked roads, opportunities to spend time in rural places or places that have that lack the buzz and activity that we see in a lot of urban areas now. So I mean, there are a number of events associated with it that are all over the country. Here in Trinidad, there are now 2 events taking place.
We're going to take. We'll talk about those in a minute. Okay.
Yep.
Hold that powder dry.
So yeah, that's gravel cycling in a nutshell. So basically, if you look at it, it looks like a road bike, but it behaves like a mountain bike. They tend to have wider tires. There's a lot of debate right now as to how wide of a tire someone should be on before it becomes a mountain bike. But it is something that has captured the imagination of a lot of longtime cyclists as well as newbies. One of the things that's, it's about is the idea that you walk out your door and you can go in any direction and ride any type of surface and find a way to, tap into the joy of riding a bicycle. And so with the pandemic, of course, that pushed a lot of new people out onto bikes, or people who perhaps put away a bike for a little while. And so the boom was happening prior to the pandemic, but the pandemic really kind of accelerated it. And Trinidad was pretty fortunate in that it was able to establish sort of, I guess you could say, a beachhead within that space starting in 2019, right before the pandemic. So, right now we're seeing more. I definitely see more cyclists in town, more bikes on cars. So, it's been working. So, we're in a very unique time era as far as the gravel cycling trend, but it's definitely opened up a pathway towards being involved in the outdoor recreation economy, tourism, and then having the ability to sort of, introduce people to in a pretty authentic way. I think it's when you're on a bicycle and you're just riding around, you're looking at things, it provides a unique perspective on a community or a place or, an experience. So, so that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. If I can jump in, one of the things I really appreciate about it is if you love bicycling, but you understand the road bicycling may be a little dangerous trying to be on the side of the road on busy highways or busy even back roads. And maybe mountain biking isn't where you are right now from just a challenge perspective, or whatever. This really is something almost anybody can do. I mean, anybody could do it with any bike if it weren't for goat heads, but you take those out of the equation, and so you have to have tires. But so you and Steve and your partner, Stephen, you started this gravel guide in Trinidad, and we'll talk about some events and some of the opportunities.
Correct.
But now I want you to let me know, you're in how many communities and where are you?
So to put in perspective, we are releasing books 9, 10, and 11 in the next several months. June will be the start of the one that'll come out for Fruit and Palisade, which is where I just was over the weekend. We went out there to shoot the short film and also check out some of the routes as well. And that'll be followed by Bellingham, Washington in July.
Nice.
And then our neighbors to the north are going to get a book as well, which is Huerfano County's Spanish Peaks area. I'm really excited about that book because that was another area that I spent quite a bit of time exploring and trying to understand, what could be done and where things are going to go. And then the cool
beautiful
thing is,
over there.
Yeah, the cool thing is we've done 8 books already. One of the ones that we did last year was for Pueblo, and actually another one was with San Luis Valley. And I see the ability to start connecting regions through some of these routes. So as these books pop up in these neighboring counties, it's a good thing, because it just means people have more of a reason to sort of come and explore and spend time, and probably will generate multiple visits because people will be like, I didn't go to that last time. I need to go check that out now. So.
Well, and you're not. I mean, you're here in Colorado, and we're based in Southern Colorado, about 14 miles from New Mexico. But you're also in several places in New Mexico. But you're on the East Coast and the West Coast now too with these guys, right?
Yeah. The reality is there's a lot of dirt road out in our country. I think right now they're saying there's about 2 million miles worth of road, and that's been going down substantially since the 60s, I would say. Just because, development, town, cities, neighborhoods, subdivisions, all that stuff. But there are a lot of dirt roads all over the country, and every state has them. And if you're 2 to 3 hours outside of a major metro area of a sizable population, you're probably tapping into people who are trying to get out and explore. So it's a trend that it's global. Really, at the end of the day, it's global. And I knew that going into it back in 2019 and developing the initial campaign to sort of put Trinidad on the map around the gravel phenomenon. I was just like, man, this is like stuff that anybody in the world would come here and be like, this is amazing, this is awesome. So the idea that Trinidad could be a global player was real right from the get-go. So and now we're tapping on the doors of potentially doing something internationally. It may not happen this year, could be next year, but it'll definitely come together because that's how big gravel cycling is. It's global, So
the amazing thing about it, and I'm seeing that when you started, how many years ago did you start here in Trinidad, even before the book?
So I arrived in Trinidad in 2016, the summer of 2016. That's when Wormhole just became a thing, like where it was just like, let's build some trail out here. So
Wormhole is I just hiked Wormhole on Sunday just to get the legs going. It's a wonderful what the Trinidad Trails Alliance has done with that, and then a lot of other people along the way. There's always a lot of people involved. Sometimes there's the faces on things, and so in all frankness, sometimes people take credit for things that they really weren't on the trail for. But what that group, you and a lot of other folks have done is pretty good. What I really love about this kind of cycling, this kind of activity, is you really can start your morning in a nice local coffee shop or a nice local bakery or something like that, nice breakfast place, fuel up a little bit, travel in whatever area you want, not be bothered by a lot of cars. Maybe there's more cows out there than anything else. And then have an incredible day, and then come back and have some wings, some pizza and beer at the end of the day with your friends. I just find it to be so conducive with an activity that actually has a lot of fellowship and getting together with folks that isn't so strenuous unless you want to make it that way, but it's really just fun and a nice, great weekend for people to go and see rural America. And why leave the city and come to a place like Trinidad that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, and I saw it over the weekend being posted in Fruit and Palisade. We were, like I said, checking out some of the routes, but we were also spending time downtown. And, both towns, outdoor dining, they had it. They were like making it a part of the experience. And you saw people, seated around. They had their bikes in the bike racks right next to the tables, and everybody's seated around, having a good time, laughing, smiling, and sharing stories images. I would say everybody's got their phones, of course, which is another, feature as to how to access Trinidad, is through a mobile phone as for a lot of these routes. So,
Right.
so I mean, it's and like I said, I'm seeing it all over the country. Frederick, Maryland was another town. I know, there's always been a struggle with, the streets aren't, well equipped to handle outdoor dining in Trinidad, but there are towns that are figuring it out. In some cases,
if Boston can do it on some of their narrow streets, it's lots of places can do it.
Yeah.
Another conversation. I think we need to start favoring pedestrians and people outside walking around town versus cars, and where do you park them, and what they do.
And I think that Trinidad overall is in a very fortunate situation with what's happening in outdoor recreation across the country, because it's blowing up. It's everywhere. Like every town's trying to figure it out, and this gravel cycling piece is a real easy way. It's one of many ways, but it's an easy way for a town to get into the space and to be able to establish some sort of economic development around it, and but at the same time promote a sustainable experience, for how do you engage with a place.
Well, and some of the things with regards to that is most of the if you haven't been out in rural America for a while, come on out. It's pretty incredible. But a lot of our towns and cities, we're kind of one trick ponies. So a lot of times extractive industries, coal, gas, mining, those kinds of things, timber, the ranching, etc. So there is this thing happening right now where we have some things that you just can't get into a city. You can't get our experience, but we do have this thing where a town pivoting from something they're familiar with, even if it were boom and bust, to something they're not so familiar with, is really a struggle for a lot of communities. I know we have that in our community with regards to just embracing, rather than embracing the natural resources you have in your area, embrace the nature resources you have in your area. And there are industries like this. And so I'm seeing outdoor recreation going along with some of the historic opportunities and economic engines in these communities. But I'm seeing outdoor recreation being another leg of the stool that you can build upon to even out your economy in rural areas. And so I know there are some challenges, and we'll get to that in a second. But I also always want to take some time to do some shout outs of folks that you found that have been real beneficial. It can be local, it can be on a state level, it can be kind of national, who are really embracing this for what it may be able to do in communities. And we'll talk about maybe some of the challenges with regards to that in a minute.
Well, I'm pretty fortunate that I have a pretty, I would say, deep network across a lot of different industries, including the cycling industry. There have been a number of publications that have been willing, early on when I wanted to send a press release or I wanted to share photos or the video content, like they were eager and willing to share that. There's a guy down in Santa Fe by the name of John Watson with the Radavist. He has been a supporter from day one. Stephen Fitzgerald is the owner of a bike company in Denver, Colorado called Rodeo Labs. He's been super supportive. And right from the get-go, he was like one of the first brands to embrace the Gravel Adventure Field Guide. We've been really fortunate to develop strong relationships with the Colorado Tourism Office, Office of Economic Development, International Trade. We're actually currently working with them on further developing gravel cycling tourism at a state level, which we're really excited about. That's really cool. And that grew out of, the guidebooks and the content that's being produced. And then, just people I've worked with over the years, like, I can, it's pretty amazing how quickly I can find myself talking to pretty much anyone I want anywhere across the country who's with a visitors bureau. So, and I think that's a reflection of past work experiences and interactions that I've had with others. But on a local level,
and results, right?
Yeah. Right.
You start providing results in a certain area, you should be known and you should be accepted and applauded and requested. So I think a lot of the stuff you've done is earned. So let's jump right into that. So those are some folks that have helped you. If somebody's watching this and they say, you know what, our community has incredible downtown. We have locally owned businesses. We have a vibrant, we'd like to even out our economy. We've got incredible vistas and nature so close by. Gravel grinding seems like something for us. What are some of the challenges that you've run into that somebody trying to bring this to their community may also run into, so they can be a little bit forearmed on how they proceed?
The biggest challenge is just people being stuck in a way of doing things, and this goes back to change sort of thing. But my approach to it all is just like, look, we all have to grow, like regardless of whether or not we feel like we've known everything or done everything. We still have to find a space where we allow ourselves to learn something. And so that's not always easy, and some people always have a challenge with that. But I think one of the cool things that we've been able to do with Gravel Adventure Field Guide is when we deliver that finished product, people who perhaps were maybe butting heads or not wanting to kind of see the vision as to where it was going, they walk away just like, wow, that I did not expect to see that. This is really well done. It's very professional. It's very, it tells great stories. And that's the thing that I know that I can be a pusher when it comes to certain things, but you kind of alluded it to earlier, is like, I take everything I do seriously. Like, it's passion, right? Like, and I think that's, one of the things that can carry you through what ultimately are challenging situations in rural, and it's not for everyone. Like, the reality is that it takes a certain personality to kind of play in that space, but there is a level of reward of being able to walk away from what was a challenging situation and knowing that there was a solution. I'm a believer in finding creative solutions. Like, everything's always got a solution. Sometimes it's hard, it's not easy, but you can always find a solution. And it's okay if at the end of the solution there's a no. Like, you can't do that because you've exhausted everything you've sort of done. And so I think that's one of the challenges we have when we go into communities, is that, at first I think some people, they're just like, what are these guys doing? But then when they see what's put out, they're kind of like, wow, okay, like this was something that I feel like it represents our community well. This is something that I can share with others. This is something I can talk about and feel proud about. So I think that's what's been really fun.
For a person with a passion towards local businesses and local economy and localism and that thing, I can actually see, I've been here 8 years, but I can actually see kind of that thing to where this isn't a Juan, Stephen doing an adventure guide, and that's where the benefit is. This really does percolate and have this help to create connective tissues across lots of segments of our local economy. There are now new opportunities for businesses that just weren't there before, and these things breed other new opportunities that just weren't there before. And so there is this, I think fear and change and the unknown certainly are some of the drivers of resistance. But what I try and at least advocate where I can is, if you can embrace some of these things, embrace them and manage them through a process so that your community can actually create different areas of an economy and not have one be so overwhelming that it takes over. Because what we want to try and do here in Trinidad, Southern Colorado, and a lot of rural places is make it to where people are invited to come here. They can come here and enjoy the natural resources. But this doesn't have the effect in a lot of mountain towns and ski towns where we can learn a lot of lessons of what they've done right and what they've done wrong, in that we don't want to get to the point where you can't live here anymore. You know what I mean?
Well, that's going to be the big challenge.
That's going to be the big challenge.
That is easily going to be the biggest challenge. Because I can tell you right now, like, there are a lot of towns that people can choose to go to just in Colorado alone, right? Like, and some of them are in different paths. There's towns that have been over visited, like there are too many tourists, and that's had a negative effect on a town. And then there's the towns, I think, kind of like us, where we're on the front end of a wave that's coming. I want to be really clear. Like, it's a done deal. Like, there are going
Right.
to be so many people coming to Trinidad over.
Right.
I've been in California and had conversations with folks about Fisher's Peak. It's like people know what's going on in Trinidad. People know about the gravel cycling now in Trinidad. People,
So the thing is, since that's, and I think it's inevitable, right? Since we
yeah,
know that, it's good to get a lot of parties and do some collaboration so you can manage your way through it. I'm from a mountain ski town, spent 18 years, I raised my kids there. My kids can't go back there. They've engineers, they've got good jobs, but there's no economy there. And they can't go back there and live because it's too expensive. There's no real economy. And so we don't want that. We want a kid that graduates from Trinidad. We want somebody, in my mind, somebody graduates from Trinidad High School, does 2 years at Trinidad State College, goes outside and comes back and has a place to come back home. I still think we want those kinds of things.
Sure. But I'll be honest with you, Pat, I think this goes back to the challenges is nobody's figured that out yet.
Yeah.
Like no town has figured that out. So there is no clear path towards that. But that goes back to the idea of, folks that are, mindful of these things, putting some thought behind it when they make decisions, right. Especially folks that are sitting on city council or that are sitting right. in the mayor's office. Those are the folks that really need to be mindful because it's coming. Like it's no joke. Like it's every town I go to is bursting at the seams. Roanoke, Virginia. Yep. I was just, down in Hyco, Texas, another town that really blew me away. That's probably a little bit smaller than Trinidad, but it's about an hour and a half outside of Dallas. So it gets a lot of that traffic.
Big draw, yeah.
They have a huge event called Gravel Locos, which was founded 2 years ago. And the first year, they got 1,300 cyclists. And it's only growing. They're the ones that just put on the one in Pueblo this last year, and they're going to be doing it again this year. So,
hold on a second. So let's transition to that. Tell me about some of the events that are happening here in Southern Colorado, in Trinidad, and some other areas, so we can get that on people's map because it's close to summer. We'll get another couple of snows, I'm sure, but I think we can almost say we're in spring, maybe, knock on wood, but. It's close to summer. What are some places that people can go to? Maybe starter events, and then maybe this kind of the big event we have here in Trinidad.
So this year there'll be two. I mean, there were the last couple years. Two gravel events. One will be this year. It's in June. It had been prior in May, and that's the Pony Express 160. Phil Schweitzer is a gentleman who started it. He's out of Colorado Springs. I would call him one of the early sort of advocates of gravel cycling in Trinidad. He came down, I want to say like 2012 and started mapping out his route. And it's gotten a lot of really good feedback. And then there's the fall.
Now that starts where? That starts in Cokedale, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And then, we'll probably see anywhere between 300 and 400, I would say, for that event. It's taken him a little while to get that number up. But now, it probably was helped with Lifetime Fitness doing the Rad Dirt Fest. That certainly has exposed a lot more people to it. That one will take place in September, end of September. But they're two very different events. I would say the Pony Express is that grassroots, people hanging out in the parking lot, grilling together, and then the Lifetime event is definitely more geared towards like a larger sort of experience. Dare I say the word corporate?
I had that in my mind too, and I think that's the word we have to use, but it's not. It's that, but it's not that. And a lot of that has to do with it's a corporate, it's Lifetime Fitness, but it also embraces the community. Essentially, you get a whole dose of Trinidad and a real community in that. So I think they've done a pretty good job, at least from my view, of bringing that kind of corporate big event. This is going to be big but this is still about hanging out in Trinidad and riding around some of the greatest country, for gravel grinding that obviously I'm partial, but I think that combination of community there. I think our community, the first time that was here, a little apprehensive, what the heck's going to happen? And I think when they saw the quality of the people that were here, the appreciation for somebody coming here, the ability for somebody to come in the area, I think maybe it at least a lot of folks I know thought that's something that's really a not a net positive. It's a very positive thing that happens. I'm looking forward to it again this year.
I would counter. I'll leave you with this. I think it's a double-edged sword. I'm seeing it from a different perspective. You know, I'm seeing events of that scale in other towns, and that goes back to our conversation about sustainability. And so that's something that will certainly be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Well, and that's why, I mean, quite frankly, that's why I have Juan DelaRoca talking to you and visiting with him rather than me, because this really is a guy that has been in this since the day one, really early on, and brings the passion to there. Juan, I like starting on time and ending on time if I can. What are some things that you would like? I want to do two more things. What are some things that we didn't cover that you think people should know? And then how does somebody contact either you, your company? How does somebody get one of these incredible field guides? Again, it's just amazing artwork, amazing information. How does somebody get one of these from an area?
So the distribution model is it's tiered. So a certain percentage stay in a destination will get distributed through the local businesses. Maybe the Welcome Center will be the one that will hold on to it. I do believe Trinidad's Welcome Center has some. I'm not sure where
I've seen it there.
As far as numbers. And so the books that are available and that have been distributed out are free. But if you don't find one for free, because they're just not available, you're out of luck, because they are in a limited run of those books. They're not, printed in a huge. So, and that's the cool thing too, is that the books have become collector items. So every time we release a book, people will end up visiting the site and buying one of the books, which is $11, super reasonable. And that's something that we will mail out to folks. So,
well, I also say, because of the size and what this isn't one of those things where you're in a little publication or the newspaper or a flyer or a brochure or a rack card or whatever. This is a keeper. People keep this thing. So if you get an opportunity and you're in business and you want to connect with the folks that are doing this, there are advertising opportunities and sponsor opportunities in this, correct?
Correct. Yes. It depends on the destination. So some destinations actually prefer that we don't have specific local business ads. It's more about, kind of letting people know that you have these sort of themed areas. Because what you find is, again, so we have done a book now in a town of 900 people.
Wow.
10,000 people, which is Trinidad, or 9,500.
Right.
And then as many as 125,000.
Wow.
So when you get into these larger, sort of towns, a lot of these visitor bureaus sometimes can't just favor one particular business. So when they see this opportunity, they can create more content within the book, but still at the same time promote that they have local business, but not necessarily call out certain individuals. So that has a different sort of tier for how we work with a destination. But it definitely more often than not, the idea is to promote those local businesses. And so the new fruit house is a great example of that as well.
So the website is what? Because I'm going to put these in the segment notes later on. What's the website somebody would go to?
www.graveladventurefieldguide.
Yes, graveladventurefieldguide.com.
Yep, .com. Yep.
Really simple.
My email is juan@graveladventurefieldguide.com. If you go to the website too, there's the short films. Each town that's done a book has also gotten a short film. It's about 2.5 minutes long, quirky, fun. The one that we just did in Las Cruces, New Mexico, came out really great. We had Sarah Sturm, who's a top athlete in the gravel racing scene. She's actually from New Mexico, and we were able to have her join us and be a part of that experience. So it was really fun. I'm really excited about this new Frida Palisade short film that's coming out. I think people are really going to enjoy this one as well. And, that was the other thing too with the Gravel Adventure Field Guide, was we really wanted to tap into the spirit of creativity. Trinidad is a creative district, right? And we're trying to get creatives. And so the book definitely has an art flair to it. And then the short film piece has also got an art flair to it. And the idea was to be creative and present cycling in a different sort of way. Most of the industry is pretty focused on racing, performance, but that's not everyone. Most people just want to go out and ride a bike, or
exactly right.
Be encouraged to go out and ride a bike.
So
let alone try to compete.
You remind me of something. As we do these local stash kind of interviews with the movers and shakers, the folks that are happening, we will be calling out to some of our creative class economy folks. So the makers, the producers, the artists, those usually are the people that actually redevelop a place. So if you ever look at a place that's blighted and it turns into something like Lodo, it turns into something great, it's usually the creative class. It's usually the folks those are the ones that go in there, make it really cool and make it a place to be. One of the things that where Juan was saying where the adventure guys is, download your local stash card, put it on your phone. You'll show it to folks that have a sticker in the window. Go to localstash.com and you'll see a lot of the places that Juan's going with gravel grinding, whatever. We're trying to actually do the same thing. So the point here is to get you outside, get you having fun, get you to some place that you may not have experienced before, and have a lot of fun with the whole family and make it real easy. And to me, gravel grinding fits that bill as much as any kind of outdoor activity,
Well, and the most fortunate part for Trinidad was there was no need to spend money on infrastructure.
Exactly.
The roads were there. The roads, are not
right.
They're not going anywhere, and they've been there for a long time. So it was merely taking what was available, identifying a trend that was happening, which was that people were looking for this sort of cycling experience, and just pointing them in the right direction. And look what's happened.
Again,
I wish I had it with me. Elevation Outdoors magazine just did a spring little section talking about which gravel races to do. They mentioned the Pony Express, but their first line was Trinidad is now the epicenter of the Colorado gravel cycling scene.
How cool is that? And quite frankly, a lot of that is because this guy right over here, a lot of that is because of him, and then a whole lot of other people in the community. So if you're thinking about doing this, if you're with a travel, if you're with a town or whatever, I do encourage you to reach out to Juan and see if there's something that he can help you, guide you to this, if it makes sense there. Juan, really appreciate you. Really appreciate you taking the time. And thanks so much. This was everything I wanted it to be. I'm going to put notes in the show. I'll put notes in there so you can get a hold of Juan, and we'll put some links in there to some of the festivals. We'll do the Pony Express. We'll put the Rad Fest in there. But I thank you for taking the time to look at this. And Juan, really appreciate you, man.
Yeah, you bet, man. Take care. Have a great day.
So, and we will be out.